Headphones do solve real problems. They're consistent and they don't interact with the room. And that's a significant advantage over speakers in an untreated space. But as we just covered, headphones lack a few things by default. The good news is that those things can be put back in. And that's what binaural rendering and room simulation do. The binaural renderer takes a mix, processes it in a way that reintroduces crossfeed, simulates the acoustics of a real room, and applies an HRTF so that your brain receives the kind of spatial information that it would normally get when listening to speakers in a room or when listening to anything in a space. Done well, the result is a headphone experience that feels a lot closer to sitting in front of a pair of speakers. The question is how accurate that simulation will be. And this is where it gets really interesting. Most binaural rendering tools use a generic HRTF. Your HRTF is shaped by the unique geometry of your ears, your head, and your body. And a generic profile is essentially an average that's measured across a large group of people and applied to everybody. For some listeners, it works reasonably well. For others, the spatial illusion is unconvincing at best. And in some cases, it can sound phasey and just plain bad. This is why a custom HRTF is so important if you want binaural audio to work for a larger group of people. Rather than applying the average of everybody else's ears, you measure your own HRTF. And that's exactly what SonarWorks Virtual Monitoring Pro does. It includes a binaural in-ear measurement microphone that you wear while it plays test signals through your speakers in your room. In about 15 minutes, it captures how your specific ears in your specific room hear that specific system. And the result is a profile that you can use with any pair of headphones. That last part is really important though. You're not just capturing an HRTF when you do this. You're capturing your HRTF in a room with your speakers, which means the room you measure in matters. Ideally, you'd make that measurement in a space that's already acoustically treated and corrected, because Virtual Monitoring Pro will capture whatever the room sounds like, imperfections included. But remember, engineers work in imperfect rooms all the time, and they learn them over time. So a VM Pro profile of an imperfect room that you know well might still be more useful than a generic profile of that room, or headphones as they are by default. And for producers who don't have access to a well-treated room at home, there's an interesting possibility here. If you can get access to a treated studio, even just once, you could make a measurement there and use that profile to mix from that studio virtually from anywhere. If that's possible at the individual level today for music producers, it makes you wonder what this might look like at scale for the general public someday. Right now, tools like SonarWorks Virtual Monitoring Pro make it possible for individuals to capture their own HRTF in a room they trust and use that as a reliable reference anywhere. Hopefully you're already seeing how big that could be for music production. But what if it doesn't stop there? Think about what it would mean if we could deliver music, film, and video game audio as a binaural render to every listener with a custom HRTF. Not a stereo mix down, played back on whatever speakers or headphones they happen to be using, but a render that accounts for how they actually hear sound in the real world. If we could capture or synthesize HRTFs at scale, we could get closer than ever to delivering a mix that sounds the way the person who created it intended for it to sound, without the listener needing to invest in acoustic treatment or expensive speakers. We're not there quite yet, because generic HRTFs are still an approximation, and measuring every listener's HRTF individually isn't really practical at scale. But the research is moving really quickly. Scientists are exploring ways to predict a person's HRTF from photos of their ears, and machine learning is being used to generate personalized profiles without requiring a dedicated measurement session. And as those tools improve, the gap between what a music producer hears in the studio and what their listener hears on their couch is getting smaller. So will anyone use speakers in the future? I think so. There's something about the physical experience in the body of sound moving through the room that headphones will probably never fully replicate. But I do think that the role of speakers as the only reliable reference is already being challenged. And for music producers, a future where your music reaches your listeners the way you intended it might be closer than you think.